Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I think we're ready to start. Thank you so much and welcome to today's Cybersecurity Webinar Series 3 of 3, because we've had 2 before, on romance scams and online relationships. I'm delighted to be your moderator for today as we unpack one of the fastest growing forms of online deception that preys on trust, emotion, and vulnerability. In our increasingly connected world, the lines between genuine connection and digital manipulation can blur, making awareness and vigilance more crucial than ever. Today, we will hear from 3 experts who will help us understand how these scams operate, their social and psychological impact, and most importantly, how individuals and institutions can strengthen digital resilience to protect themselves and their communities. We've had 2 webinars prior to this one. The first one was on the 16th of October, which concentrated on child online protection and rights. And the second one was on the 23rd of October. That was asking a cybersecurity expert a question on social media, digital hygiene, and safe online behavior. Let me introduce you to my presenters for today, who will each unpack this topic in 10 minutes. The first one, we're going to have Danielle Badenhorst, a cybersecurity specialist at CSIR, who will be followed by Thuli Mkhwanazi, a senior researcher at CSIR, who will also be followed by Siphokazi, a government affairs and public policy manager at Google SA. And they will each present in the order I have introduced them. Ladies and gentlemen, I encourage you to interact with our presenters during our Q&A session, either by typing your question on the chat, or you can raise your hands. Now, let me give the floor to Danielle. Danielle, the virtual floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thanks for having us. We're really excited to dive into this today. As mentioned, I'm Danielle, and my colleague Thuli will be joining me for this presentation this evening. And a topic has already been introduced, so let's jump right in. So tonight, we're just going to go over a few different topics. Very briefly, I'm going to mention what romance scams and catfishing is, how these scammers or fraudsters operate, some red flags or patterns that individuals can look at to really equip themselves to be able to see these scams for what they are. The psychology of the scams, we think it's important to know how these individuals can exploit our human psychology, what we can do to protect ourselves and to prevent this from happening. Thuli is also going to debunk some of the myths versus facts and what to do in the event of fraud. And then we'll have a Q&A, but I believe that'll be a little bit later. So let's jump right into it. What are romance scams? So romance scams are basically when criminals create fake online identities in order to gain the trust and affection of people. And then they exploit this emotional connection that they have built up, often over a very long time, to steal either money or personal information from individuals. So this is quite a large problem. As you can imagine, a lot of people are using online spaces these days to meet new people. And the amount of online dating users in South Africa alone is expected to be around 7.2 million users by 2029. So as you can imagine, this is a very big threat surface. And in 2023, we saw some statistics that romance scams made up the majority of incidents, around 40% of losses of fraud in South Africa, and consumers lost well over 125 million rands. So as you can see, this is actually quite a big issue in the country. So these scams can also kind of happen anywhere, really, especially when we're online. It's quite common on dating apps and websites like Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, etc., and also on a lot of different social media platforms. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, anything with direct messaging capability could potentially be a threat vector. Also a lot of gaming platforms, so on online multiplayer games, Discord servers or gaming communities, and any type of direct messaging. So this could be emails, messaging groups, WhatsApps, Telegrams, SMSs, chat forums, and so on. As I mentioned, wherever anyone can send direct messages to people, it is possible for people to build up this kind of rapport or community with someone. So anyone can also be a target. I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding that only specific people can be targets of romance scams, but especially with generative AI, like I'll go over a little bit later, anyone can really be a victim and it can be tailored to specific people. But there are some patterns, there are more common targets, and unfortunately we see this is for individuals who have been recently divorced or widowed, people seeking companionship, people who are a bit more isolated, or people who are new to online dating and don't necessarily know how everything works. And also all ages can be affected, but we've seen the highest losses for people in the 40 to 69-year-old age group, particularly because these individuals might be a little bit more financially stable and have more to lose, essentially, and that's why attackers will go after these individuals. But young adults are increasingly online, so we've seen this in young age groups too. So how do these scammers actually manage to extract money or information out of people? They do this through emotional manipulation, exploiting loneliness, building trust, and really hammering on our cognitive biases. So they're very skilled at reading emotions and adapting their approach and responses to make a very powerful bond that generally clouds people's judgment. And then they also target our fundamental need for connection. So they really offer exactly what the person needs when they're feeling a bit vulnerable. And they do this by building trust and pretending that they maybe have shared vulnerabilities with someone so that they can really connect with them. And then they also exploit our confirmation bias, so seeing what we want to see, and also the sunk cost fallacy of investing more time after you've already invested so much time into this relationship with this individual online. They also use something called love bombing, which is an overwhelming display of affection, attention, flattery, and this is designed to create a very intense emotional attachment and dependency. So they can be very excessive with their compliments, they message you morning, noon, and night, they very quickly declare their love, fast future planning, and they mirror your interests very perfectly, and they make these individuals feel very special and unique. So these are some warning signs. The relationship moves too quickly, it's too perfect, and you feel very overwhelmed, maybe a bit excited, but it is really very intense. And also often you are encouraged to isolate yourself from others so that other people don't necessarily understand what is this other person saying to you and so on. And also very intense pressure to reciprocate what the individual is saying. And sometimes if you read it with a bit more of a clear head, these feelings would seem a little bit manufactured. So how these scammers operate is they build fake profiles. So they can steal photos online, maybe from models, from real profiles, or they can generate it with artificial intelligence. So on the right-hand side of the slide, you can see there are a lot of different faces. These are all AI generated, and you can very easily generate new faces, new people to make it look like exactly who you want it to look like. The scammers are also very able to run multiple scams at once. They have scripts and templates and AI generated things so that they can talk to multiple people at once to try and extract as much money as possible. And they often work in organized groups. And then they also quickly push you to move offline to less secure platforms. So say you meet someone on Tinder, they will ask you immediately rather to message them on Telegram or something so that it can't be linked back to their profile. And also now we'll go over generative AI in the next slide. So attackers are also making use of things like ChatGPT. So before this webinar, on the left-hand side, I had a very quick prompt. I asked ChatGPT to create a Tinder profile for a 25-year-old woman. And it gave a very nice profile on the left-hand side with interests, made the person sound really interesting. They like adventuring, they're a brunch enthusiast, and it sounds very convincing as someone that they can also tailor make it. So they can do some recon on someone, see what they like, and then tailor a profile that's absolutely perfect to try and extract money from that person. And on the right-hand side, we have something called deepfake. So this is where you superimpose someone else's face onto someone. So on the left-hand side of the picture, that's the original actor, and the two other faces are deepfaked ones. So you might get a video call from someone who's superimposing an AI-generated face so that they might look like someone who they're not actually. So the scams generally work that there's an initial contact, they groom the individual or they build trust or rapport, then they start escalating their commitment and their intimacy through what we call love bombing, and then they introduce the problem. They need money for something. And then from there, they extract the money or the information, and then they either disappear or they reuse the same person if they were actually a victim of the fraud. And then they might reuse that multiple times until the person either doesn't have money left or until they figure out that it is a fraud or a scam. So some common scams that we've seen is often it's distance-based. So it could be doctors who are working far away, they're on military deployment, they work in an oil rig, and it's very easy to blame poor internet for not being able to video call or prove who the person really is. There's also a very big drive for crypto requests. People want you to invest. They say, well, we're trying to build a future together. Maybe we should invest some money into this cryptocurrency so that we can get rich very quickly. And then also we've seen a lot of celebrity impersonation. It might be from a social media influencer saying that they just don't have money to come and visit you right now, but they will pay you back once they see you. And also a recent case in France, there was an individual who was defrauded thinking that they were in a relationship with Leonardo DiCaprio, and they were defrauded of 830,000 euros. So you can see this can have quite a large effect on an individual. And that's it from my side. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Thuli now, who's going to go over some red flags that you might be able to look out for. Thanks.
Thank you, Danielle. Greetings to the audience. I'm also excited to carry on from Danielle. So I'm going to be talking about some romance scams, red flags, or some early warning signs to look out for. If they request for your personal information, if they ask you for personally identifiable information, such as your ID number or password, they are likely trying to collect information for some type of identity theft fraud. While getting to know each other is a standard part of a new relationship, certain details should alert you to the fraudster's ill intentions. They don't divulge information about themselves. If they either outright refuse to or skirt around sharing personal information about themselves, they may be trying to maintain control and avoid mixing up their backstory. In most cases, fraudsters shift the focus to the victim, trying to extort more information. They refuse to meet you in person. If they refuse or make up excuses as to why they cannot meet you in person, they may be falsifying their identity to you. While virtual relationships are commonplace, when someone never attends to a video call or other means of live interaction, it should raise concerns about their true identity. Their backup story doesn't add up. If their stories start to contradict each other, it could be a sign that the person you're talking to is lying and that they aren't who they say they are. The relationship advances quickly. If they try to move the relationship forward at an abnormal pace rapidly, they may be trying to strengthen and nurture the relationship quickly. The point of advancing the relationship so quickly is to speed up the process of exploiting the victim. They claim it's an emergency. If they tell you they're in an emergency situation, they may be trying to leverage the emotional connection that you have and create a sense of responsibility to help. This also builds a sense of urgency for the transfer, giving the victim little time to think through that decision. They ask you to use unregulated platforms. Daniel has already mentioned this. If they ask you to move your conversation off the dating app you met onto a less secure, more private communication platform, they may try to con you. Typically, fraudsters choose channels that have fewer protections and regulations than the original channel they met on, leaving the victim more vulnerable. They ask you to transfer money on their behalf. If they ask you to either accept, send, or transfer money on their behalf and want you to perform transactions with other individuals, this may be a sign that they're trying to lure you into money laundering. What are some protection and prevention strategies against these romance scams? Reverse image search. So take their profile picture and any other photos they send you and use a search tool such as Google Images to see if the image appears elsewhere online. Insist on a video call. A scammer will rarely agree to a real-time, non-filtered video call. If they refuse or keep canceling with an excuse, that's a major red flag. Check for vague or inconsistent information. If their story or personal details are vague, contradictory, or change over time. Practice safe online dating. So this is, do not share your sensitive details, do not send explicit photos or videos, tell a trusted person about the online relationship. Set boundaries and trust your instincts. If something feels wrong or makes you feel uncomfortable, it probably is wrong. Be careful about sharing personal information. Do not share your home address, workplace, or full name. You can use an initial or a nickname until you have met and established trust. Be careful about what you share publicly online. Remember that once something is online, even if it's a photo, you no longer have control over what it's used for. Trust but verify their identity and important details. Check their social media if it's too good to be true. Never send money to someone you have not met, regardless of how convincing or desperate their story is. No legitimate romantic partner will ask you for money so early in a relationship. So I'm going to be discussing some of the myths versus facts. So it's a myth that it's the victim's fault for falling for the scam. That's wrong. The fact is that the victim is never to blame because romance fraud is a crime of emotional and psychological abuse. The victim is subjected to love bombing and intense manipulation, which makes it incredibly difficult to see the deception or simply walk away. Myth number 2 is that only older or lonely, uneducated people
Thuli, I lost you from my side. Can anyone on the call confirm if they can still hear her?
No, can't hear her.
Okay, maybe while we wait for Thuli, I deliberately didn't introduce myself at the beginning because I was still waiting for more people to join. Let me do that now. I'm Siphokazi Novukuza from the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies. I am under the Directorate Cybersecurity Operations. Thuli, I hope you are back. I see you smiling, so you can have the floor. Thank you.
Pardon me with that glitch, colleagues. Yes, I'm back. So scammers target people of all ages, genders, and education levels. They also target highly educated professionals. They are skilled psychological manipulators who exploit normal human emotions like loneliness, hope, or grief. Number 5, if they haven't asked for money yet, it's not a scam. That's false. Scammers take their time. Requests for money usually happen only after the scammer has established a deep emotional connection and trust. They may manipulate you for months before making a financial plea. Number 6, only women are targeted by romance scammers. Nope, men and women are both targeted. While women may report higher monetary losses, male victims are also likely to be targeted. The scammer's approach is simply adjusted based on the target's gender and perceived vulnerability. Number 7, the scam always involves the victim sending money directly to the scammer. No, the financial request is often disguised. Scammers may ask you for money in many ways, including pig butchering, which is luring you into a fake cryptocurrency or investment scheme, or money muling, where they ask you to receive and transfer funds on their behalf, often without the victim knowing they are facilitating money laundering. The last myth is that the scammer is always a stranger who is not who they say they are. Nope, the scammer can be someone you know. In some cases, a scammer may use their real identity, but enter a relationship with fraudulent intent, such as living off the victim's resources or using them for financial gain. Next, we discuss some of the immediate actions to take after you have been scammed. So step 1, seize all contacts immediately. Block them on all platforms, on your phone, email, dating apps, social media. Do not respond to any messages, threats, or excuses. Scammers will often try to love bomb you again or use threats to keep you engaged. Do not give in. And also save all evidence before blocking them, like taking screenshots of the profile, the conversations, the emails, and any transaction receipts. Step number 2, contact your financial institution. Please act immediately as time is of the essence in trying to recover funds. Contact your bank or the credit card company immediately. Explain that you were a victim of a fraudulent scam. Ask them to reverse or stop any transactions. Change passwords and pins to all your accounts. If you provided account details to the scammer, ask the bank to freeze your account or work with them to secure it until further unauthorized access. Step number 3, report the scam to authorities. I'll speak more about this in the next slide. Step number 4, protect your identity and devices. If you shared any personal information, you are at risk of identity theft. Change all passwords on your email, your banking, your social media, and any other accounts. Use strong, unique passwords and enable two-factor authentication everywhere possible. Step number 5, seek emotional support. The emotional impact of a romance scam is often more devastating than the financial loss. Lean on your support network. Talk to a trusted friend or a family member who will listen without judging you. Do not carry the shame alone. Seek professional help or consider contacting a mental health professional or a support group for fraud victims to help you process the feelings. And then how you can report the scammer, there's a website called YIMA. It's from the South African Fraud Prevention Service. It's specifically dedicated to reporting scams. You can also call the SABS tip-off line and report a scam. Also, you can contact SABS, report the incident at the local police station, and ask the matter to be referred to a cybercrime division if it's an online crime. Then final takeaway message, if it feels good to be true, pause and verify. Protect your heart, but also protect your wallet first. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you so much, Thuli and Danielle. Our colleagues, you've told us what to look for. You've told us that internet does not forget. Your information will always be there. You've told us about the AI deepfakes, which are very dangerous because people use pictures that are not theirs. You've told us the red flags. You've told us never to trust a profile behind a computer. You've told us that you need to be vigilant and what to do when you have been a victim. I think that is a mouthful. I'll just request, Thuli, that you type the 2 websites that the colleagues can use to report on the chat so that it is easier for them to take home. I'll now hand over to Sipho Mtombeni to tell us what is Google as a tech company doing in this case. Thank you so much, Sipho. The virtual floor is yours. Please show us your face.
I hope you can see me and see my presentation.
Both. Thank you so much. You can go ahead.
Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sipho Mtombeni. I work at Google as the Government Affairs and Public Policy Manager, and happy to. And thank you to the both speakers. That quite a big job for me. I don't have to worry about sharing some of these details since you've already done so. So, I mean, scams, and especially love scams, is something, or romantic scams, something that is complex, and it's an ongoing challenge that is perpetrated both in the online and offline channels. And I think colleagues have already spoken to that. And from our side, as Google, we are committed to addressing these challenges across our different platforms. And I'll talk a little bit more in detail as to what are those various different platforms. But we've actually seen that this requires a whole society approach to address the issue and the problem. We do have to get into coalitions and join forces with government, with other tech companies, and also impacted stakeholders to be able to address these issues. So fighting scams really does require a sustained collaboration, again, across the different. And really today, what I'm going to share with you is really just an overview. I've got a few minutes to share today, so I won't get into full details and deep dives, but I will share some resources that you can read at the end of the day. Now, at Google, really, I just want to step back and share that Google's mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. And this is quite a core mission to everything that we do. And this requires us to be able to make sure that information that we provide and present to our users is both relevant, but is also of quality, that is going to be presented to our users. That's why we take our responsibility in tackling fraud and providing access to trustworthy information quite important. What we've seen that propagating false information is harmful to consumers, to legitimate businesses and people, and in this case, to a lot of men and women who are vulnerable and we may taken advantage of in this instance, and thus it undermines individual users' trust in platforms like ours. And so online scams and fraud, we've seen there's been a growing problem with a devastating impact on various different people of all ages and backgrounds. And the one thing that unfortunately my colleagues have already spoken about is that scammers are constantly evolving their tactics and taking advantage of new technologies and social trends. So things like AI are now being used more and more in addressing and trying to get into helping scammers in their endeavors. But really, as I've mentioned, one of the things that we do in our strategic approach to addressing and taking action against scammers is making sure we have these 3 pillars in place. So firstly, we want to make sure that we keep our users and our society safe through making sure that our products have built-in protections that can help, that can prevent, that can protect and detect, and also respond to harmful and illegal content that is coming from scammers or bad actors. Secondly, we also want to make sure that we foster confidence in the information that we provide, and that the content that on our products, on our services and our platforms is reliable information. And lastly, also, we want to make sure that we scale our industry-leading practices through proactive partnerships and communications with experts and organizations. And I'll take you a little bit more into that detail of how the various things that we do. So now what we know is that online scams are a growing concern, as I've said, and technology does help this, unfortunately, and progresses it as bad actors are finding new ways to defraud. Access to mobile devices, to laptops, to social media has made access to personal information of potential victims a little bit more easier. And this is why they've been able to propagate and continue to use these technologies to their advantage. And while the underlying methods remain the same, and I think these have been spoken to, we've seen that there are a number of variations of online scams. I've highlighted here a few of those, though I think our focus for today has been kind of on the romance scams, which also relates to phishing scams, etc. And really what we've seen is that fraudsters have sought to take advantage of this reality, of this new world that we live in, and apply a variety of deceptive tactics in order to be able to perpetrate these acts against users of technology. Now, here I've just put in some numbers in terms of some stats. So we found that online fraud is a growing transnational organized crime. So these are syndicates that operate across borders. These are syndicates that operate across different countries and different continents. But it is also important to note that because fraudsters rely on multiple channels of communications with victims, and this is both online and offline. So some of the things that we've been able to see as a software company would be the things that are online. So to some extent, we don't have visibility on some of the deceptive behaviors that take place offline. And I think, again, this was talked to, that we've seen that how conversations, for instance, might start online and then be taken offline by these perpetrators. But because of our partnerships with a number of organizations like the Global Anti-Scam Alliance, we've been able to kind of see some of these trends that have been rising, because one of the key ones that came out was that about 87% rise in online scams reported from 2015 to 2022, which was according to the Better Business Bureau. So it is quite important, and it's quite clear that action is required from all of us, as I've mentioned. So I'm going to talk you through those three fundamental steps that I talked about, or the three fundamental pillars that I talked about, that are going to really that are going to kind of explain and give you an overview of how we at Google think about this. So the first one I talked about was protecting users from harm. And this diagram here shows you kind of a scale of kind of how, when we are operating at scale with to counter scams and fraud, it's really important for us to have a structured approach. And a lot of it is powered by technology, and we have these three pillars under which we work. So we work to prevent, to detect, and then to respond. And I'll also talk a little bit into detail in the next few slides about each of these steps. And within each of those steps, you'll see there that we have work that we're doing, bringing expertise across policy, across product design and engineering, intel services and work that we're doing, and analysis that we do in order to be able to address each of those steps, whether we're preventing, detecting, or responding. And we have teams within Google, including, for instance, what we refer to as our trust and safety team, which work with people, which work to keep people safe online, and always trying to stay a step ahead of bad actors, again, in this ever-changing environment of technology. Now I'm going to get into a little bit more detail on the prevent step. So with prevent, primarily we want to prevent abuse from occurring. Again, by abuse, again, it's all the things and all this conduct that my colleagues have already spoken to. So this is our first line of defense, and here we make sure that we have safety features that are built into our product in order to be able to deter and prevent abuse before it takes place, right? So we're focused, for instance, on developing security features that are deployed by default into our products. And I'll talk a little bit about them, a few of these in the next slides to come. And this is really what we refer to by safety as safety by design, which brings together verification and product features in order to be able to assist the safety of our users of our products. Now, the next step here is on detect. Again, here in detect, we have each of our products that are governed by a set of policies developed in consultation with experts, of course, and also outline the types of content and behaviors that we would allow on our platforms and whatnot, and what we would not. We also have teams that trade, for instance, with classifiers that work to, again, detect and flag content that is possibly abusive. And also we work with priority flaggers like NGOs across the world that, again, bring their expertise into this topic of scams and fraud, into providing us information and intel around those very scams that they are picking up on a daily basis. Further from a detect point of view, there's two kind of general ways in which we do it. Where content might violate the law, so that's the legal part. So we make sure, not even try, we definitely make sure that we comply with the laws of each country. So for instance, in South Africa, we'd make sure we comply with the Cybercrimes Act. We make sure that we comply with anything in relation to privacy, and we're required to remove illegal content, for instance, because it is leading to such conduct like fraud. We would remove it from our platform. And the second step really relates to policies, and this is where we talk about kind of the rules of the road. These policies, referred to either as community guidelines or content policies that we have on our platforms, again, help us to guide how content on our platforms is going to be used. And as we do this, we work both with kind of technology where there's automated detection. So we have AI systems that are built to detect content and trends, for instance, that are taking place on our platforms. If you're thinking about YouTube, for instance, and would be picked up by automated systems. Versus, again, also where we work with human detection as well. These are the classifiers and the priority flaggers that I've referred to as well. The last part there is on respond. Again, here once we've taken content and enforcement decisions based on whether it was picked up by automation, the AI, or by a human flagger. We always want to make sure that there is contextualization that takes place. So we always kind of seek to get as much information about the conduct as possible in order to be able to ensure that we're removing what should be removed, or if conduct is possibly fraudulent or claimed to be fraudulent, that we actually have enough information to make that case. There are, for instance, things like appeal mechanisms, etc. But again, here we try to make sure that there's much information as possible in order to help us to do that. Here, I'm just demonstrating, for instance, some of the forms that we have and the features that we have, where people are able to kind of report incidences or kind of user content that they believe to be fraudulent or a scam. And here I've just outlined, just like for each of the products, for instance, that we have, when you think about Gmail, we have built Gmail in such a manner that it blocks 99.9% of spam, phishing attempts, and malware that is from reaching users. So again, the AI tools are already working to spam filter content and be able to block any emails or content that is likely to be resulting into a scam or into a spam or into a phishing attempt from you. Again, for instance, with things like Google search, we have features like safe search, which again, for theirs is to identify pages on websites that are scammy looking or fraudulent, that have fraudulent content, and prevent them from showing up on your search results when you're looking for particular content. In the interest of time, I'll just move on and not get into the details of each of those, but maybe to talk about the second pillar, which is delivering reliable information. So again here, so the first one, we kind of talked about making sure that we build tools that are going to make it safer for our users. But one of the key things for Google, especially because we know people would first place that they require information from is go to Google search or go to YouTube and then find information. We want to make sure that we remove content from our platforms that is likely to result in a scam. So some of the things that we're doing, for instance, is relation to the concerns that have been raised already about AI-generated images and AI-generated content that we are seeing is being used to propagate these scams. So we've built tools like SynthID, which provides metadata about images. So you are able to, as a person or as a user, once somebody sends you an image, like the ones that Danielle showed earlier, where they were AI generated, you can use a tool like SynthID detector, which would then find and detect the metadata of that image and be able to show you that actually this is an AI generated image. We also have a feature called About This Image. About This Image is a tool on Google search. Again, you are able to take an image when somebody sends you a picture claiming this is them. You can go to the feature About This Image, and that feature is able to kind of do some fact checking, looks at like social media sites, looks at various different websites across the internet to find as much detail as it can about that particular image or whatever photo that you've been sent, and then gives you that context. Again, it will tell you, for instance, if that image is AI generated. The last pillar I wanted to talk about was about collaboration through programs and partnerships. Again, here it's quite fundamental because we do believe that this requires the work to tackle scams and frauds in this nature. It requires a partnership across the ecosystem in order to make sure that it does help a lot of people. So some of the things that we've done from a Google point of view is that we have collaborated through the global Anti-Scam Alliance to create this DNS Research Federation, to create this global signal exchange, which is again an exchange of data where we've picked up information. We are able to share it across with different platforms, with different tech companies. And we do this to be able to provide real-time data to each other, and be able to share insights about information that we're receiving, or scams that we're able to pick up. For instance, once you pick up something on our YouTube collective, to be able to share that across different stakeholders. One of the things I've spoken about earlier was the Priority Flaggers program. Again, here, Priority Flaggers is a program that we have with, for instance, advertising self-regulatory organizations and other kind of advertising standards organizations, fraud prevention services like we have in South Africa, and we would work with them to ensure that they are priority flaggers. And what that means is that we would kind of take a lot of advice from them when they pick up scams. They have a direct channel to Google. They then share that information about the scams and fraud that they're picking up. And we are able to then take that information and act on it immediately, because we do know that they're specialists in that type of work. And it helps us to be able to do so. Here again, I'm just sharing some of the partnerships and coalitions that we're part of. And then really talking about here, some of these coalitions here are more focused on the AI generated content that we are now seeing is coming into play in some of the scams that have been spoken about today. With that, I think I am at the end of my presentation. Thank you. As I said, I will share one or two resources in the chat for participants to be able to kind of take it back for a read. But thanks for that. And I hope my overview was a bit clear, because obviously we couldn't get into detail today, but happy to do so also in Q&A. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sipho. It is good to know that Google is ahead, and they're also making sure that we are protected. I think 78% of scammers is quite a big number, but I think your prevent and detect and respond framework is working, and also the content removal. I know about it because sometimes we do work with you to remove those. Please do share the resources, especially the about this image, those ones for deepfakes, to detect, so that the colleagues on the line can be able to use them. And I think at the end of it all, we all know collaboration is key. Without collaboration, we can never beat this cybercrime. Thank you so much to all the presenters. Now it is time for Q&A. Let me check if we have anything on the chat. Okay, it is only you guys. You are allowed to raise your hands and have a discussion if you have any questions. Let's see. And my beautiful faces are back on the screen. Are we that scared to talk about romance scams? Have you ever been scammed? You can also ask them a question on that. I saw a comment about us saying, someone said, call Mkhwanazi. First thing to do, call Mkhwanazi. Oh, Thuli, I wonder if you are related, but yeah. Call Mkhwanazi. If there are no questions, guys, I can give the floor back to you, because I know I gave you a timeline, which is 10 minutes. I can give you a floor back to wrap up in whatever that you wanted to. Let's see, we are now at 18:43. So we have 17 minutes left. So I can give each one of you 2 minutes, and then we will take it to the closing remarks. Any takers? Danielle, Thuli, Sipho?
Sure, I don't mind jumping in. I think one of the things that I just wanted to put as a takeaway is that I think we as people can be very ashamed if we are the victim of scams or fraud. And I think that it's really important, and I think Thuli also mentioned this, that it's really important to start discussing this with family members. Because one of the things that I saw and that I have heard of from family members and friends is that scammers really want to isolate you and make sure that you don't have contact with other people so that they can help you realize that you are potentially being scammed. So just making sure that we're really leaning into our support structures, our networks with friends and family, people that we trust, is just so important, because it is specifically, and quite unfortunately commonly, people who are quite isolated and lonely who are targeted with these types of scams. So reach out particularly to older people in your networks as well, who you might think could potentially be targeted with these types of scams. And I think these types of sessions are so important to educate people. So I'm glad that we have the opportunity to talk about this. I think some people might think that romance scams are a little bit of a unserious business, and it actually really is quite serious. So I think it's fantastic that we had this forum to discuss it and to talk about some of the red flags that one might be able to look for. So thanks for the opportunity. It's great that we could discuss it.
Thank you, Danielle. Thuli, Sipho, any last thoughts?
Yeah, last thoughts from my side. I just wanted to go through some of the common long-term impacts of being a victim of an online romance scam, which Danielle has already touched on. But some of the victims feel a huge sense of betrayal. So they get something that's called betrayal trauma, where it's a breakdown of trust, not just in strangers, but also in themselves. So they judge themselves for falling victim to such a scam. That is why then it's important to seek professional help, so that somebody can work through your mind and tell you that it's actually not your fault. These things do happen. Also, the issue of isolation and shame, it could be some of the long-term impacts that victims face. And this is because they suffer in silence, because they fear judgment from friends and family, who may not understand why they fell for such scams. Also, depression and anxiety. Symptoms of severe anxiety and depression are common, sometimes leading to suicidal thoughts or attempts. So that is why it's important that if you have been a victim of a romance scam, you seek professional help, you report the scam, you talk to your friends and family. And these sessions like these, being aware that romance scams actually exist and what to look out for, it also helps if you do, God forbid, become a victim. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thuli. I see we have a hand. Mr. Matsebe, you can take the floor.
Thank you very much. I think my observation and my reading of scams, romance scams incidences, have shown that I think there's a concerted effort that we must all put as society. And I'm saying as society, those of us who are privileged to know that this thing exists, to use the platforms that we have access to. And you have a situation where a father or a mother or both parents are having a problem with a drug using child, and they're embarrassed to talk about it because they feel that it's not something that they should be talking about, because people will say you did not do your job. The same thing applies with this subject that we're talking about, whereby I find myself lonely, unable to talk about it, because I feel that if I talk about it, they will judge me, as already the other speakers have said. Why I'm bringing this one, I would like us to have a platform where a situation where, as a country, we when we talk about this subject, we furthermore say, let people who heard about it relate to other people within their own family households, because those people ordinarily they would not come when they have been scammed. It's very embarrassing to talk about it. Now, if we just create when we go to churches, when we go to Stokvel meetings and all that, we still a slot of 5 to 10 minutes just to remind the people that there's this thing. And some people may be suffering in silence. Someone may just be rescued from such. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Matsebe. Sipho, I'll give you a minute because that will be unfair if I don't give you final thoughts before I call our closing remarks.
Sure, no. I mean, I think from our side, obviously the internet and the tools that we have currently are great, and they're helping us in terms of our economic participation, etc. But I want to encourage everybody that once you're going to be using technology, please also make sure that you are using it in a safe way, in a manner that you're going to protect yourself. So all of the guidance that was provided by Thuli, for instance, as well, things like, using two-factor authentication, verifying pictures that are being sent to you, but also knowing that when something sounds too good to be true, it probably is, because unfortunately that's the world of the internet that we live in. So my last words is really to just kind of familiarize yourself with the protections that you have in the technologies that you use. If you're using an Android phone, or any other phone, for instance, there's spam protections that I provided that can actually try to pick up for you if there's a phone number that's been detected somewhere as being used in a scam or in a fraud. There's other protections that exist in terms of, for instance, when you're going onto websites, I've seen people who still click through when you're going on a website and it says this is potentially a scammy website. The people still say, well, take me there. I still want to go there because my friend told me about it. But I think it's really just for us to make sure that we use the technology that's also being built for our protection as we are using the rest of the technologies. And most definitely, I encourage the thing that I think all of the colleagues have said, sharing is caring. The more information that is out there about these kinds of scams, the better. That's why even for us, we always encourage our users to report that information to us, because then we are able to use our coalitions, our global coalitions, to make sure that then we elevate this across the different platforms, in tech and in financial sectors, etc. I mean, we share that information so that those scams can be picked up quickly. But if victims do sit on that information and they're scammed in some type of way, unfortunately, it's going to go to some maybe 10th person before it's reported that we can actually action it. As I said, part of the problem that we deal with is that while the interactions do start online, sometimes they are taken offline, and we don't get to put those pictures together. So definitely encourage sharing that of information amongst people. If you are picking up these things and seeing them, it's better to talk about it than to sit on that information. Just to help the potentially next victim that could be helped through that by that information that you have. Thanks for this.
Thank you so much, Sipho. Try giving experts 1 minute. They will take 3. Thank you so much, colleagues. Now let us welcome Mr. Matsebe Phasha, who is a committee member and the secretary of the Limpopo ICT Forum, to give us the closing remarks of the 3 sessions we've had. Mr. Matsebe, it's you and our dinner. We have 8 minutes to our session and we still need to wrap up after you. Thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, colleagues, and the listeners, all the people who have attended this session. Good evening. As we conclude this year's 2025 Cybersecurity Awareness Month Webinar Series, I would like to express my heartfelt appreciation to everyone who joined us throughout this insightful sessions, whether you participated in 1 or 2 or all of the 3 webinars, which are going to be on YouTube, meaning that people can consume them at their own time and pace. And on coming to sharing and caring, that we should be pushing that to make sure that people get to see what we went through the past 3 webinars. Our journey over the 3 weeks has been an eye-opening journey, and deeply relevant to the digital challenges facing South Africans today. In our first webinar on child online protection and rights, we were reminded by our program director that it is time for us at all times to start closing the digital doors that we've opened, thus ensuring that children are protected from harmful online influences. The program director on the day, she mentioned the statistic that were very sobering, and that the research indicates that 68% of the children are not monitored online. That means the majority of our young digital users are navigating the vast online world unsupervised, exposed to bullying, exploitation, and inappropriate content. In other words, In the words of the Honorable MEC Chidereke Matsebe, who opened our series with such a wisdom, he said, the reality is that every cyber incident, whether a scam, a data breach, or an online fraud, chips away the public trust and costs our economy millions in lost productivity and recovery. And this statement covers everything that we said since the first webinar, one way or the other. And the little child that is hurt by the online activity may grow as a damaged individual or an adult. That effect can go with such a person when they grow up. Now, this code captures why awareness and vigilance are not only a personal responsibility, but a national economic imperative. In our second webinar, themed Ask the Cybersecurity Experts, social media hygiene, social media, digital hygiene, and safe online behavior, we learned that online safety is not just about strong passwords, and it's about strong behavior. What we post, what we share, and how we interact shapes not only our digital reputation, but also broader digital ecosystem. Each of us has a role in creating safer and more respectful online community. Tonight's final webinar on romance scams and online relationship fraud brought home the emotional and financial devastation caused by online deception. These scams continue to cause havoc in people's lives, breaking hearts, draining savings, and eroding trust in online connections. As one of our experts highlighted, such crimes thrive because victims often remain silent out of embarrassment, and that silence allows scammers to continue exploiting others. They thrive when we are silent. Across all three sessions, the insights from the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, the Department of Communication Digital Technologies, Google South Africa, and other experts reveal the growing complexity of online threats and the urgent need for sustained education, vigilance, and collaboration. The statistics and examples shared, though sometimes alarming, remind us that awareness is our most powerful defense. On behalf of the Limpopo ICT Forum, I wish to extend our sincere gratitude to the CSIR, the DCDT team, and all our expert panelists for their invaluable contribution throughout the sessions, and thoughtful responses and commitment throughout this series, as I said, the sessions. And lastly, to my colleagues at Limpopo ICT Forum, thank you for your dedication, teamwork, and passion for promoting a safer and more connected Limpopo, South Africa, and the world at large. As we conclude this year's Cybersecurity Awareness Month under the theme, Your Data, Your Power, Hlayiseka, let us remember this powerful truth. Let us remember this powerful truth. Cybersecurity is not just about technology, it's about people, awareness, and shared responsibility. This webinar series organizing team has shown without fail such a commitment and responsibility to broaden awareness. Every click, every post, and every conversation online contributes to either a safer or a riskier digital world. Let's choose to make a safer. Let's choose to make it safer for our children, for ourselves, for the generation to come. Thank you. Stay vigilant, and remember, your data is your power. Hlayiseka. Kia leboha, duluvuha, dakenza, tanki, kia leboha, ngiyathokoza, engozi, ngiyabonga. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Matsebe. Thank you so much, colleagues. I think just to leave you with parting words, be vigilant, be safe online. Make sure that you verify every profile. Don't trust the computer. Internet does not forget. Click what you think is safe. And after this, you can never be scammed with all the information and the resources that you have been equipped with. And I would like to give you a minute back and say the session is closed. Thank you so much and have a great evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.